Hello, welcome to Mountaintop Media. I'm Leslie, and today we are going to be speaking to Sam, who is the founder of yournews.com. We have a couple citizen journalists here in Shasta County who have just been introduced, and I was introduced by somebody from the Steve Stern Show, and I am excited to learn more. I heard about it months and months ago and then totally dropped the ball, so I am excited. Sam, thank you for joining us.
Leslie, it's good to be here. Great to meet you.
You too. So, because we're kind of starting all over, tell us who you are, what is yournews.com, and what this can do for not only Shasta County, but for everybody. What does this do? Because we both know that there's not a lot of accurate news places. There's not a lot of accurate channels, I guess, is media streams, so many people get their news from TikTok, from Twitter, from, they do this and think that they're getting accurate information because the trust for mainstream media is going. So tell us what you do and how what you guys do may be the solution.
Sure. We're a platform. Just for your audience, we're a hyper local news platform. The domain is yournews.com. So when you log in, we geolocate you like everybody else. Your provider tells us where you live. If you block your location, you just click. There's a green button that says change your location. Enter your zip code. It'll take you to your city. So once you're there, our website will look like any news website: the Miami Herald, the LA Times, Chicago Tribune. We're just in every city in the United States. So what we have is mega scale. Every news outlet on planet Earth is an aggregator of information. And what I mean by that is, and I know you know what I'm talking about, Leslie, you know how people that have news will send a press release to the media.
Yeah.
So if it's a church, having a bake sale, or the Cancer Society's having a 5K run, somebody from those nonprofits sends a press release to the media. News organizations aggregate all that information, and then they decide what they're going to air or publish. That's the aggregation part, right? So we're an aggregator of the identical content. Excuse me. We just have the ability to print it all because there's no cost, and we can organize it by subject and geography. So what I mean by that is all news is either city, county, market, which is defined by television DMAs, which is how the world is set up today with 210 DMAs, state, regional, or national. Example would be somebody's Little League game is sports news for a city. The high school football game will be sports news for the market. The Monday Night Football game is sports news national.
Right.
Make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
So we're an information aggregator with massive scale. And all we're doing is taking all the country's information, bringing it under one umbrella, and creating one uniform media. And by the way, our model is the exact replication of the newspaper media industry and radio and TV, minus all the print and distribution costs, but more importantly, puts the power of the press back in the hands of the people where it belongs.
And that's awesome. We actually have a lot of local citizen journalists here in Shasta County because that's the thing, is the public is the press. They are there to ask the questions, to get the information out. And especially now with social media, anybody and everybody can go out and give you an update on, what's going on. I'm streaming live. I mean, how many times do you scroll through and there's live videos of what's happening? That doesn't come from KRCR or Action News. That comes from, somebody who's out on the street doing it. And so we're seeing all these citizen journalists pop up everywhere. So how cool that there's a place where you could go and get all of that content.
Exactly.
And more.
By the way, well, so I've been in this business for a long time, and the reason, and I'm sure you agree, and your audience probably agrees, the reason we're in the mess we're in today is because of the media, the legacy media, period, end of story. It's, if they were telling the truth for the last, well, I'm just going to say the last 8 years, but it probably was the last 50 years.
Yeah.
None of this stuff would have existed. But, they've been lying through their teeth. And even when they get exposed. They continue the lies, or they just drop it and go on to the next one. That's the crazy part, right?
Yeah.
So it's very obvious that, we have a media that it's got government influence and it's got advertiser influence. And what I mean by the advertiser influence is, pharmaceutical companies, right? The whole COVID vaccine, all that stuff,
Yeah.
right? The media was not reporting the truth. And when the people tried to report it, all the tech giants kicked them off, right? So therein lies how Rumble came about, because they filled the void. But what's going to end up and by the way, I'm just going to tell you, the legacy media, a lot of people think they're not going to survive because they've been lying. It has absolutely zero to do with it, Leslie. Zero. I will tell you, it'll speed up the process. Maybe it'll be 6 months earlier.
Right.
But the real reason they're not going to survive is because of the audience demographic not viewing. And so I don't know if you know this. This is my world. The average age of people watching cable news is about 72 years old right now. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did. It's
okay
fun.
now. Yeah, 72 years old. And now Adweek just came out with the numbers for cable news, and they were abysmal, absolutely abysmal. But that's not the news, because we all kind of expected it. The real news is the demographic between 25 and 54. Now that's when you're in the advertising business, that demographic is the people that get out of school and now are probably getting a job or getting married, maybe buying a house, have to buy diapers, all the stuff as you're growing through life, right? That demographic is the number one demographic for advertisers, because you're basically in consumption mode for the next 30 years, okay? And that demographic, which represents 130 million people, I have to ask you, like Leslie, take a guess at how many people were watching cable news, excuse me, in for January, February, March, in that age bracket on all networks. Take a guess.
In the 20 to 54?
25 to 54 for 3 months on Fox, CNN, MSNBC.
Probably
How many
100,000.
people do you think we're watching?
Nationwide, probably 100,000.
Yeah, nationwide for 3 months total viewership.
100,000.
Did you say I give up?
No, I said 100,000.
Okay, so you were the closest. The last person I was on said 30 million, which means 100 million work. It was 500,000 people. And just for the audience, I mean, you have 100. Where's the other 229 million? Where are they getting it? So like you, to your point, Instagram, Facebook, they're scrolling through stuff. They just don't get their information on mainstream media. They're getting it somewhere else. So the reason I'm bringing this up to you is because as the older generation, dies off, there's nobody following up behind them.
Right.
So there's still a demand for news. It's just how people consume it that's changed. That's what's putting them out of business. Lying has been their business for the last 50 years, okay? Somehow they've been able to survive it and get through it. But now it's just the people consume it that's changed. So ultimately, what I see as the future of news will be a hyper-local news platform, most likely global. Remember, all digital properties that have scale are global: Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Uber, eBay. They're all global. So it'll be a global media giant by zip code, with a social component where the public can interact and share in the narrative. It'll have a monetization model for news reporters similar to YouTube, where a local news reporter could write a story, they could share it on their social media pages, and they could earn a percentage of the ad revenue that appears around their content, and a self-service ad platform where Joe's Pizza can log in your market and buy an ad and target it to one zip code or wherever they want around a specific type of content that's relevant to their product. Make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Right. And we're the only players.
Wow. That's exciting, though. And
yeah.
it's definitely needed. I mean, I don't know how many people I talk to, and I try to explain what's going on in our community. Like, they'll come up and they'll be like, well, I heard that this happened and there's chaos. And I'm like, okay, but did you also know that this vote happened before that, and this happened before that, and this is what led up to it, and this is what really happened? But, I have pictures of where the news walked up and took away their microphone after the drama before the real business got done, and they have no clue the whole story. And I'm like, where are you getting your information? And they're like, well, I go like this, and and then sometimes I go to a Substack, or sometimes I go to a Rumble, or sometimes, and people are going to like 6 different platforms to get their information. And
Exactly.
you've centralized everything.
That's what we're doing. And then what I see is, in any paradigm shift, I don't care what it was, everybody well, you don't remember it, but everybody knows there used to be something called a horse and buggy. And then, now there's automobiles. So, we don't ride in a horse and buggy anymore. And, when was the last time, Leslie, you sent the telegraph? And the answer is you didn't, because somebody created the phone, right?
Right.
Well, there's no paradigm in history where the old people were part of the new, meaning the 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 old guard, or the people that were part of the mainstream media, which on LinkedIn, I have LinkedIn Navigator. So if you were to type in freelance journalists, and the definition of freelance is I don't have a job, they're looking for work.
Right.
There's almost 500,000 people now that are calling themselves freelancers. Not all of them, but most of them are part of the downsizing of the legacy media. There's there is 170,000 student journalists on there. So what's going to end up happening is the next generation news platform is really not going to be the old guard. It's going to be all new news reporting. And remember this. Did you ever work for any network TV station, Leslie, doing any kind of broadcasting ever?
No.
Huh?
No.
Okay, but yet you're a broadcaster, right? And that's because technology exists today where you could be a broadcaster. What I have is technology that allows independent people to become local news reporters and do it on video, like what we're doing here, audio, or written content, or all three. So we're all of them. And I see somebody like you, or somebody like your citizen journalist, or some soccer mom that is, very proactive in the community, that becomes the next news reporter and starts covering the local stories. Because at the end of the day, who are you going to trust more? The person that was actually there at the city council meeting, or somebody reporting it from 500 miles away?
Right. And that's kind of why we've become what we've become. Is we had a whole movement. We actually started as a docu-series, The Red, White, and Blueprint. I don't know if you saw that. But it was a docu-series about taking back local control of our community. And it followed a recall of one of our supervisors. And it ended up being a multi-part series that went nationwide. And then they rolled into their own podcast. We had other people who already had shows on local radio. We pulled them as podcasts, and we've just had these podcasts grow, and they report out the local things happening, talk about, nationwide news that's happening. But we've had to start really involving the community. You're not going to sit through an 8-hour board meeting. Let me give you a 45-minute board recap where we go over everything that happened. And so that's what we do. But when I do that, I have to upload it to 7 platforms. And if I could upload it to one platform and get it out to everywhere and then just share it on those platforms, that sounds so much easier.
Oh, God. Yeah. So, well, first of all, you're correct. I mean, people don't like to go to the city council meeting because it's not exactly very exciting, right? Until something big happens. So the reason there's news reporters is the news reporter goes there and they sit around for 3 hours, and they are the ones that take notes and write a story and distribute it, because not everybody can make it to a city council meeting. They have a life to live, right? That's where the local news reporters come in. So like you said, to your point, you're going there and you're kind of shrinking it from 3 hours down to 30 minutes or whatever it is. This is the big stuff you need to take from this thing, and then distributing that to your audience. So yes, that's content that would be perfect for us, and we could handle that content, but our distribution model will be just to a specific city or locale, whatever that's relevant to. If it's relevant to the market, it's relevant to the market, whatever it's relevant to.
And that's awesome, because we cover, Anderson City Council, Reading City Council, and then the county board of supervisors, and we try to cover all of it so that everybody knows what's going on. And we try to cover Shasta County. We're trying to grow. We have one of our new podcasts is in Southern California, and we have a large market in the Sacramento area. And so we have a group of people that are basically doing the same thing. So the idea would be we end up having another one of us, but in another area doing the same thing. So something like this just kind of launches it so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
That just remember this, like right now we have, we started marketing about 6 months ago for citizen journalists, marketing primarily on LinkedIn. I'm going to start expanding to other areas, other like social media sites, but we've got now 800 news reporters that are reporting news. Okay. And by the end of this year, I want to get that to 5,000. So could you imagine having 5,000 independent reporters covering stories? And by the way, there's 20,000 cities, Leslie, which means that if we have 5 a city, that's 100,000 news reporters. You haven't even begun,
right?
Because my product is broad, meaning you're talking about city council meetings and stuff like that. Well, what about people that like to do restaurant reviews? What about people that are theater critics? What do you think? What about people that like to do entertainment type news? And I'm talking about, the fair coming to town in your particular market, or, some event that's happening. I mean, local stuff is really local news is the backbone of a free society.
Right.
And without it, we're all screwed. So what we're doing is bringing back the local newspaper and local news reporting. But it's going to surprise the hell out of everybody. The old guard's not going to be part of the new system. It's going to be all new people reporting news, and it's going to be a big montage of different people. So it could be, like I talk to a lot of student journalists, and the students, like, could you imagine having a kid in school and they're going to journalism school? You realize nobody's hiring, right. Leslie? Nobody is hiring. So could you imagine being a mom or a dad going, what are you doing? You're in an industry that's collapsing. When you get out, where are you going to go to work? Okay. Well, believe it or not, it's actually the most exciting times for these kids, because all the people that used to report the news on the newspaper in their community are not going to be part of this. It's going to be a new group of people like you that is going to be reporting to the public, and they become the next go-to people. And the cream's going to rise to the top. That's just how it's going to work.
Right.
It's actually the best time to be in the news business right now.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Actually, I'm all about this because I've been, like I said, when we were talking earlier, I've been focused on just how do I build the framework of what we're doing here so that all of that is done. And then I can just focus on content, right? Getting fully funded, getting our, what show lineups we have. And then all I got to do for the next year is push content, right? And manage those pushing content. And so for the last 3 months, I've had my head in a hole working on just the framework stuff. Like, how do I get all the things in line? So for the next 6 months to a year, I could just sit back and report and get the other stories that my other people that are doing things. I mean, like I said, I've got multiple shows on our platform, and I just need them pushing out content. I need to be looking for new content. And so we're trying to figure out how to break into these other markets, just like you're saying, because we're realizing TikTok and Twitter or now it's X and Truth Social. And we're trying to get out to all these, get this 30-second blip. And if we did something like what you're doing, it would get out to so many more. And there's so many things that do go across the lines. Like, we have one content creator that he speaks about everything that's going on in our country. He has somebody who's a survivor from Epstein, and she was, bred into a society in Kansas. That's way outside of our normal audience. That's a story that's relevant to everything happening in our country, And so to have access to get that out to other people who would want to hear that story.
That's all I am is distribution and monetization, right? And so I have everything from people reading golf news to I'm big in auto racing, Formula One in particular, because I have Formula One content creators that goes in auto racing. So we're very broad in scope. That's what drives the audience. But
Right.
when they're there, they start clicking around more. So somebody could come in because of a specific, let's say you posted something. It could be a city council meeting in your area. So they come in to read that stuff or watch it, whatever it is.
Right.
And then afterward, they might click sports or auto racing because they're like, well, I like auto racing. What do they have? And next thing you know, somebody else, one of my other content creators, his stuff is being seen. So at the end of the day, the legacy media, as we said, is not going to survive, Leslie. What I do is going to replace it. And if it's not me, it'll be somebody that does the exact same thing. It'll be a hyper local news platform with literally millions of people being able to contribute to the narrative locally. It'll have a monetization model where hundreds of thousands of news reporters will be reporting the news and getting paid for it, and a self-service ad platform where millions of advertisers can buy ads and target it around the content right down to one zip code that's relevant to their product. It's
Right.
where it's all going. I'm the only player. That's it. So this is a big deal because, as I tell people, the reason we're in the mess we're in today is because of the legacy media, right?
Right.
It's really, I'm going to tell you what the real reason is. It's because you have 6 institutions that control them. 6. Now, years ago, back in the 80s, there were 500 independent news outlets. Back in the 40s, there was probably 10,000 of them, independent. But what happened
Right.
is you had consolidation. And then the 500 was rolled up to just 6 people. And therein lies the problem. So because of the paradigm from the way people consume information changing, right now, we live in a world that has centralized news. And what we're really doing, and this is what I do, is decentralize the media industry, and I democratize who gets to say it. So everybody now will have a voice. And I don't care what side you're on, left, right, it doesn't matter. If you have an opinion and I completely disagree with it, it needs to be heard, because when we were censored from the tech giants and from the mainstream media, and from YouTube, all those people, we had no way of getting that information out. And basically, they were
Right.
just controlling a one-sided narrative. You know what a communist country does? They completely control the narrative so nobody has a voice.
Right.
And what we're going to do is basically, as a free speech platform, give that voice to we the people. So that's if you could take anything out of this conversation, just understand that what we do solves the problem. Completely screws the government, because here's what's going to happen. People like you are going to be the watchdogs in the community, and I'm not going to control you. Meaning, if you have a big story and you work for a newspaper and you take it to the editor, they're going to take it before a review board, and that review board is either going to nix it or let it go, and they could change it to whatever they want. I can't believe that's actually the truth, but that is the
Right.
truth. Here, you're actually the reporter, the editor, and the review board. You're all 3. So when you say this is it, you know what we say? Okay, the only thing we do is say, is it proper section and the proper market? That's it.
Right.
Because if you allow everybody to do that, there's no reason. You only need front page News National. Because that's everybody. My kid's Little League game is national news. Front
Right.
page. So,
Well,
so we
I
have to
mean, if you
control
have the
that.
next Barry Bonds in your household, maybe it is. But
Yeah, right.
uh,
So,
and that's true. I mean, how many of us stopped watching Fox News when we found out it's owned by all the same people that own NBC and CBS? And like, they're all owned by the same people. And so when that's the case and you say like, well, why isn't that story being put out here if that's really what's happening? And it is. It's why so many of us canceled our news subscriptions 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And so many of us have just switched to getting our information in other places. And I think what you've put together is genius. I think it's everything everybody needs. And I'm so excited to learn more.
yes, so thank you. And it's the truth. Unfortunately, we're in the mess we're in today because of the media. The good news is that technology exists that can change all that. And that's what we're in the process of doing. I mean, look, it's, how do I put this? I never, when I started this business, it was a long time ago. I never thought I was doing it as an entrepreneur just to build some digital property that could be worth a lot of money. Never did I realize how important it was going to be, because there's two ways to solve this problem as I see it, Leslie, and one of them is going to be a violent civil war, which nobody wants, not even me.
Right.
The second way is going to be you need to control information. So with the legacy media collapsing, it's going to give birth to a whole new platform that allows for free speech. And this is what the people want. And so once you have the ability to be able to get the truth out, it'll fix everything, because you can't hide from the truth, right? You
Right.
can't cover up. You can't cover it up in darkness. The truth is always, once you shed light on something, that's where everything starts to grow. So that's the mission here, is to really fix the problem and become the next mainstream media, not only here, but globally. So,
Yeah.
and I'm going to share something with you. There's 500,000 people out of work in the United States. There's 2 million across the globe. 2 million.
Right. Well, and we have one of our new podcasts. He's awesome. He's been doing campaign stuff for the last few years and just really diving deep into everything that's happening around the world and around government and how things function. And he's just a history nut diving into all this stuff. And he keeps saying, I'm never going to wear my Make America Great Again hat once I get the one that says Make Earth Great Again, because he said what we're doing is we're working to like fix our community so that we can fix our state, so that we can fix our country, so that we can fix, the entire planet and all of human civilization, because really we're all just, one civilization. We're one people, but we're all so divided and everybody's struggling, and there's no need for everybody to be in the mess that they're in and the chaos and the constant vitriol and the constant division. And, why is it that we live in a world that is so sophisticated and has so many advancements, and we have countries that still don't have running water? Like, once we stop fighting ourselves in our communities, we can branch out and make everything better for everybody. But it's this big organization that's been above all of us, keeping everybody separated, keeping everybody divided. Because as long as everybody's divided, there's no reason. Like, peace times don't make money for anybody, but war times make money for everybody. And so, except for the citizens.
Except for right, except for the bulk of the people who
Right.
actually get poorer because of it. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Wow. So, okay, if somebody was to get started, what do they do? How does somebody come to you to, hey, I'm a local citizen journalist. I've got interest in this. I've been writing for a Substack that's seeing 17 people a month. How do we get them to you?
Do you want me to share my screen with you, or do you want me just to tell you?
Either way, whatever's easiest.
I'll explain it. You would go to yournews.com. At the top of the page, you should see your city name. If you don't, hit change your location. Just put your city, your zip code in, and it'll take you to your city. Go all the way down to the bottom. At the bottom of the page, it'll say Become a Citizen Journalist. You click the link and fill out the application. Application comes to us. We look at it because we want to see your social media pages, just to make sure we don't have a Jeffrey Dahmer or somebody nuts.
Right.
Okay? And then, and by the way, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're conservative or liberal. It's irrelevant. It's more of just to make sure nobody's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So
Right.
if we could detect a potential nut job, we'll try and, keep them away, but we haven't got any of those yet. But, that's how, and then what'll happen is we activate you. You'll get an email with instructions on how to use your dashboard, and you're off to the races. It's just a matter of, submitting content. Now, what I'm doing, here's what I'm going to tell you. The landscape of media is obviously imploding. you need a revenue model that's no different than X or than Facebook that can generate billions of dollars a quarter. And then what we do is we distribute that money to the content creators whose content was seen the most. So obviously, the people who generate the best content are going to have the biggest audience. That's just the
Right.
way it is. The you know it's you know the better you are as a as a writer or a producer of content, you're just going to attract a bigger audience, and the cream always rises to the top. We're putting tech in place like right now. By this is the 16th. By the end of the month, we're going to have something in place which other platforms have, but we're putting it there where you can follow specific individuals. So not only can I follow golf. If I want to, if there's a golf story, please alert me. You'll be able to follow Leslie Sawyer in particular. Okay. So what you want to do is as you start submitting content and sharing it on your social media pages, you're going to have people follow you. And by the way, now we have an author page, which I should really show you this stuff. Can I share my
Yeah,
screen? You want to see
absolutely.
this? I opened up to Chicago because it's the last place I was. I'm in Florida, but the last place you are is where it opens. So this is what the site looks like. I might as well just go down to the bottom. There's a place called Be a Citizen Journalist right here. So you could click that, couple of videos, and right here you fill out this application, and then it comes to us, we approve it, and then you're off to the races. You could start submitting content. There was something I wanted to show you on this too. Oh, multimedia. We have video content. This is content that is going to be more conservative in nature, right? So you'll
Hmm.
probably see a lot of different names that you might recognize on here. But I'm going to go to national news and I'm going to do auto racing. I just want you to see this. Each content creator has their own, and I'm just going to go here to this guy, Derek Vance's podcast, wherever it is. I don't know which one it is. Hold on. Let's just say this one. So, like you do a political thing, he writes at least a couple stories a day, and then he has a podcast. Now, we sell all these advertisements. This one happens to be a local ad, this is a national ad, and then there's his video podcast right there. But the reason I'm showing you this is up here, we're going to have a little follow button where somebody can follow Derek. So what'll happen is over time, Derek might have 10 or 20,000 people following him. So when he submits an article and we approve it, it'll automatically send an alert to whatever is followed, whether it's one person or 100,000, it doesn't matter. And the moment that they all come back in, he just starts racking up money. But I'm going to click his name. You have to remember this, Leslie. This, you see the top of the page, it says yournews.com author Derek Vance
Yeah.
up here. Okay, this is Derek's page, and this is all the content he's put up. There's a lot more. Okay, I mean, he's been doing this for the last probably 6 months, so, or if not longer. So, but this is just the latest stuff, preview, whatever this is. This is a written one. This is the one we had on. This is all the content he produces daily that comes on, and it's his own author page. So people will be able to follow him. And the follow is cool simply because you could now generate revenue faster. Also, it'll attract more advertising revenue. So
Right.
here's the thing you want to know. Like YouTube, the person that has 10 videos on their YouTube channel is going to make less than the person that has 10,000.
Right.
Duh, right? Okay. Because there's more, somebody does a search, something comes up, they watch it, and the ads appear. The more links to your content, if I click this, it will immediately put money in his account because of the ads. Make sense?
Yeah.
And that's how this whole, so the more content you have on your page, the more somebody could actually do a search from a year ago and click a story that somebody submitted and they made money off of a year-old article.
Right.
That's the key. Okay. So I hope I explained that very well. And
No,
then
you,
from the local angle, this is Chicago. We do for local news, excuse me, this is going to be local news for the city of Chicago. And I don't think the picture, yeah, here it is. They loaned. Okay, so this is going to be local stuff, but just for the city of Chicago. If I took you to other markets here, car crashes in the house. Holy crap. That
yeah.
went right through the house. Okay, into the house on Chicago's far side, right? Tragedy kills, train tracks, whatever it is. So we do local news all over the United States, and it's all from local news reporters. Okay.
Right.
But you could have, like, this is Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I could have two people, one person producing 5, 6 stories a day, because it's bank robbery, car crash, they're 4 or 5 paragraphs, right?
Right.
So landowner awarded 128,000. What was the other one? Jolie Elementary site is being transformed into Vermilion's newest housing. Yankton County welcomes first canine deputy. This is all today's news. Okay?
Right.
This is all local news reporting being done. And then from the distribution, where's your market at? What's your zip code?
96003.
96003. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so you're in Reading. Is that northern? I think
Yep.
it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just went to local top stories to see what's there. Okay, so this could be House GPO's it's a news. So this is going to be state stuff because we get state stuff that's running.
Yeah.
But because of our distribution.
Well, that was us. Yeah. You have stuff on the Ninth Circuit. So, yeah.
Yeah. Here, Reading is right here. You're in the Chico Reading market, which is Trinity, Shasta, Tehama. Okay. So
which is amazing because that's exactly our market for Mountaintop. That's our audience right there, is all of those counties.
What was it again? It was
Chico Reading.
Right? So we were all set up by markets. So if I do Chico, you'll see Chico Reading market 132. That means if I'm submitting an article, it will automatically appear in Trinity, Shasta, Tehama, Glen, and Butte. That's where it's going to go.
Awesome.
And this one up here.
Yeah, Modoc.
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 Whatever that is.
Yeah.
Okay. If I wanted it to go to Chicago, it'll go to the Chicago market, which might be 30 counties. If I wanted it to go to, let's say, I'll do California. It's here. That's all the zip codes for the state.
Yep.
So if you guys have a story that should be statewide, we just hit add and it goes to the state. If you wanted it to go to, what county are you in?
Shasta.
Here.
There we go.
You could make something appear in just Shasta County, and then in particular, see the cities within Shasta County.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you have them all.
Okay, so if you wanted to, you personally, with your account, could drill down and say it's a city council meeting. I want it to go just to 96087, and I want it to be in politics. You personally can do that.
That's awesome.
You have control of that whole area. If it's somebody's little league game, it goes in sports.
Right.
And then from the advertiser perspective, they can actually remove zip codes and just put it to 1 or 2.
Right.
Crazy, but
and that makes sense.
So in terms of, so I guess that's the. Let me get out of this here. Stop share.
Yeah, because there's nothing more frustrating than seeing a delicious pizza ad and clicking on it and finding out that they're 65 miles away from you. So if they can go on there and pick just your zip code that they deliver to, that's awesome.
So what we're doing now is the first thing we're doing is the follow button. So because that's going to enhance the site and attract more ad revenue, and it's going to make you guys more money. The second piece is I made a promise to some people in Canada. So we will be opening up Canada right after that. So when people say to me, are you growing? I go, we're opening up another country.
Right.
Okay. Now Canada is going to be tied into the United States for national content because a lot of our content's relevant. Certainly the hockey games and basketball games and all that stuff. So it's going to be tied in. We're going to create provinces which are like the markets here.
Right.
So they will have control over where they want content to run to a city or to a market, which is a province, or to the country. We'll be able to do that. I don't think that'll take that long to do. The third thing is a revamp on the ad model to make it more self-service, even though it is. I don't want to I want the advertisers to be able to manage their own accounts and do everything. And then after that, I'm going to do a massive marketing campaign to start bringing in advertisers, but I'm going to target specifically local. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. When you sell a national ad, you get 1 cent for it. Every time it appears, it's worth a penny.
Right.
So if you have 10 ads around your story, you make a dime. Okay. That's how much gets produced. And then the content creators get a percentage of that. Do you know that if I sold an ad to somebody just in your city, I'd get a dime for it? So if they were all local people, the page would produce $1. It's literally 10 times the money.
Right. Well,
That's where the real money is.
and that makes sense. And I'm glad that you're being realistic with what it is that you get, because so many people, especially now, as I'm scrolling through my social media, I run a local media company. So the ads are like, make millions doing this, get your podcast on seen by this. And they're trying to sell you these subscriptions that are going to do this weird multi-level marketing thing to somehow get you, to be a billionaire. But what people don't realize is monetization does not mean instant success. It means like you might make 13 cents. I think like last quarter on Rumble, we made like 13 cents. Like we don't even have an amount that's worth withdrawing because monetization is not millions of dollars. But if you are getting your stuff out in front of your entire community and you're the main news source for that entire community, it's going to reach more than just our Rumble show that gets shared to Facebook. Like it makes sense that will become a revenue stream and it will in the end make money, but being realistic with people that like you're going to get a penny for this. You're going to get it. You don't overnight become the next, who I don't even know who to compare that to.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Right? That's okay, but that's why I said in the monetization world, you first have to build an audience.
Right.
And you build the audience through producing content. The more links you have in our system or the more links you have on YouTube, the more opportunity for revenue. You're in the business of producing content.
Right.
The content has to be in places that have distribution and monetization. I'm one of many places. Well, when I say many, I know Facebook is not monetizing you. X would probably monetize you. Certainly not YouTube and
Right.
Rumble. That's it. You're over. There's nothing else unless you were to go to Substack. But most people don't want to pay for that type of content.
Right.
They're not going to pay for it. They're not going to pay for the high school football game ever.
Right.
So if you're Glenn Greenwald, which has a name, and you're dealing with stuff that's not local, that's more global in scope, yeah, you'll get people to subscribe. But for the most part, stuff that's going to be news driven, like community events, things of that nature, nobody's going to pay for it. So this is where we come in.
Right.
And so as we start scaling this and start building it, and this is why, I don't know if Allison told you we're doing an equity crowdfund. Did she mention that or no?
No.
You want to see something really cool? You're going to like this. So my background is not really media, even though I've been doing this for a long time. My background is investments. So my background is capital raising for private deals. That's what I've done my whole life. And the way you raise capital for private deals is you go to the people that have the money, which would be the BlackRocks and the Vanguards, right? The institutional players, I have friends of mine that one guy has a $300 million fund, the other one has a $100 million fund, and they make investments in things like this, but they come with strings,
Right.
is the issue. And I understand the reason why. And so, the reason we're in the mess we're in today is because we're controlled by 6 institutions, right?
Right.
That's the whole purpose. So what I did was I said, I went to a Reawaken America tour, and there was about 5,000 people, they said, were there, and they were all patriots. Anybody going to those are going to be the patriots, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I said, oh my God. I said, these are the people that need to own my product. It needs to be owned by the people, not the freaking institutions.
Right.
Because if I go to the institutions and I told you, hey, Leslie, we just got funded for, $10 million by BlackRock, what would you say?
I'm out.
Okay, we'd be like, really? So you're basically just sold out to the devil? So
Yeah.
And I agree with that. So what I decided to do, when you buy stock with when you use something, when you do a private placement, you have to be what's called an accredited investor, which basically eliminates 99% of the population.
Right.
It completely. That's why you never got a call from Silicon Valley saying, "Hey, Leslie, we have Amazon stock at $2. Do you want some before it goes
Right.
public?" It's just the reason why. Let me tell you who got it. BlackRock, Vanguard,
Right.
all the institutions, they put in the money, they put in 10, 20 million. And then there, when you get to buy it is when it goes public. Well, they have things called equity crowd funds. Now, people might be familiar in this world because you've heard of what is it called? Angel Studios that does the movies,
Yes.
and they fund these Christian movies with conservative values, family
Yeah.
values, but they're not doing it through Hollywood. So these movies take money to do, and what they do is they sell stock to the public to fund the movies, and then the public owns the movie. Make sense?
Right. Yeah.
That's how they do it. So it's done through and it's not Give Send Go, and it's not GoFundMe. This is actual stock. So what I did was I said, okay, let's do this via an equity crowdfund because 100% of the population could participate, and you could set it so they could spend $200 or anywhere in between, because my interest was not just having institutional ownership. I wanted the people to own it, and I wanted to disperse it to everybody. Okay,
Right.
so you're going to like this simply because I'm going to show you, I'm going to share my screen one more time with you and show you how this works. You see what I'm looking at here still in Reading, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at the bottom of the page, there's something that says invest. And when I click it, it goes to a place called Issuance Express. Here it comes. So it takes me to something called Issuance Express, which is owned by North Capital Partners, which I think is out of California. And this is a invest in Nico Ventures. Nico Ventures is the holding company, like News Corp owns Fox News.
Right.
Nico Ventures owns your news. There's a reason we did it. I just want you to see this. Check this out. You see what the definition of the word
Nice.
Nico is? You see that?
Yep.
I go, we got to have that name. That's
Yeah.
the name. Anyway, so we named it the holding corp, Nico Ventures, which owns your news. We're doing something called the Equity Crowd Fund, and I'll make it bigger. It's $2 a share. The minimum investment is $200. I figured I'd make it low because most people could afford $200. They could say,
Right.
screw it, right? 100 grand minimum, which has already been surpassed, which I'll show you. And then we're raising 1,235,000. Don't ask me why. There's only three of these: 1,235,000, a 5 million, and a 75. I don't know why they just don't go 1, 5, and 75, but
Right.
1,235,000. The deadline. So we started this a short while ago, and as you could see, this is how much has been brought in, right? 350,000.
Right.
So people come here, they read about what we're doing. I have a video we put on here. And then if they like it, they click invest and they fill out the subscription agreement after they create an account, and they use their credit card or ACH, or this even takes Bitcoin if you could use Bitcoin. I haven't had anybody do it yet.
Right.
But so in other words, but here's the reason why. Because it's disseminating it to the people, so we don't allow institutional money. So the reason I'm showing you this is because we're doing this 1.2 million. Now, by the way, I had 5.4 million people consume over 100 million articles last year. I just did my audit, and my audit came in at 124,000 in ad sales, which I was blown away because I was like, when the hell did I have time to do $124,000 in ad sales?
Right.
But apparently I did. Okay. So this is not something that's a startup. This is something, we have 800 news reporters. Give me till the end of the year, I'll have 4,000 or 5,000. Easy.
Right.
It's not hard to get them. What happens is, and I'm going to go back to you here. So hold on. What happens is when you're in growth mode, and think of Amazon. Remember, like when Amazon first came out, I don't know if you remember that far back, but somebody bought the first book. Okay, so we all know somebody had to make the first order on Amazon. So how did that process go? Well, whoever took the order, they called Jeff Bezos, and Jeff said, great, ship it out, right? So you shipped it out. Then you might have got 10 orders the next day. Great, ship it out. And then one day they woke up and they had 3,000 orders. Jeff goes ship them out, and he goes, I can't ship 3,000 things. I can only wrap up maybe 30 or 40 or 50 of them.
Right.
I need help. So currently, all content coming in has to be reviewed before it gets published, not for validity, but to make sure nobody's doing anything bad. No slander, no porn. We try and catch.
Right.
But everybody that submits, we already check, and we already know who the hell they all are. It's
Right.
really just distributing to the proper geography and the proper subject. But we're fine handling 200, 300, 400 stories a day. Well, what happens when we get to 5,000 stories? You see what I
Right.
mean? And then 10,000, and then 30,000, and then 50,000. So the reason I'm telling you this is because anytime a company is growing, you're going to have growing pains, and you're going to have to solve problems, but they're good problems to solve.
Right.
So the void that I fill is the legacy media's collapse. And what that's doing is giving birth to a whole new media empire that's going to come out of it. It's going to be spawned. And that's what we're in the process of doing. So I could easily take this to the institutional players that I have to get funding. The problem is you really don't control it anymore. And I'll tell you why. For those of you who don't know, if you're bringing in 5 million or 10 million from an institutional player, they don't sign your paperwork, you sign theirs. And there's
Right.
a reason. Most founders have great ideas but can't execute. And what they want to make sure is if they're putting in 10, 20 million dollars, that the guy that's supposed to be running it can do the job. And if he can't, they got to get rid of him to
Right.
protect their own investment, right? I mean, it makes a lot. I actually agree with that.
Right.
The problem that we're in today, and one of my friends who has a $100 million fund told me, he's one of us. He even said, if what's his name, Soros, were to make an offer to you of a huge number, $1 billion, $2 billion, whatever it is, he goes, we would make sure you took that offer. You would have to take it. We wouldn't, because we will take control to get it, right?
Right.
And I said, you're selling out to the devil. And he goes, we don't care.
Right.
Did you hear what I just said? We don't care.
Yeah.
We know we put in 10 million in you and we're getting back this much. That's all we care about. Okay.
Right.
So he says that's just capitalism at its finest. We don't care who's the buyer. I don't want that.
Right.
So what I'm doing is selling shares to we the people, where the people can actually own the product. We're dispersing it to them. I'm not only doing this round. We're doing this round at $2 a share, which if you did a valuation would be about 20 million. The next one will be 100 million. So it's going to be about $10 for the next one.
Right.
And the reason is this gives me 2 years of runway to be able to scale and build and probably get 30, 40,000 news reporters. I mean, the value of this will be through the roof. So it's basically, you just filled the gas tank up with the fastest car on the road. It's gone for 2 years. You
Right.
got to jump on. That's the reason.
And that makes total sense. And I admire that. Like when you asked if we took money from BlackRock, what would you say? We've done shows on everything BlackRock owns. We've done shows on who BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street are, right? And so there's no way we can put this stuff out to the public and be like, be wary of this, and then go sign up for a company that, you know, just sold its soul to BlackRock. Like we couldn't do it. We couldn't, you know, I'm also the head of Moms for Liberty in my county. And I was at an event in Philadelphia where we had protesters who were paid by George Soros. There was a sign out front with his name on the bottom of it. There were people who were walking around with this prepaid credit cards for their spending expenses. And once 5 o'clock hit, they were no longer yelling and screaming at us. They were waving on the street and they were like, oh, hey, those are those moms. And it's like, you know, you're a paid agitator when once you clock out, you no longer stand for what you believe in, right? And so how would I be any better than that protester who is yelling, screaming, saying nasty things, come 5 o'clock, waves at me and goes, oh, hey, those are those moms. They're coming out this door. Like, makes sense. And they're so blasé about it. I would be the same type of sellout if you said, hey, we're going to take 32 million from Soros, but keep writing for us. I couldn't do that. So I respect that that's where you're at.
By the way, if you could get one of those people to actually come on your show and talk about, here's the card I got, here's the money,
right?
Could you get that? Because that would be huge.
So, had I not been in my infancy of what I am now at that point, because that was 3 years ago when I was very first starting Moms for Liberty, had I been like I was too scared of what everybody thought. I wanted everybody to like me. I was, if I was what I am now then and I saw them, absolutely. If I go, which I go to these types of events across the country all the time. So if I ever go to one and I see somebody like that, you can bet that I will be asking them, here's my card, come on. If I had been that bold back then, I think they would have done it. I rode an airplane with one of them. And my friend that I was with was like, close your laptop. You have a Moms for Trump sticker and they're Antifa. And I'm like, they're not Antifa. They're writing with the prepaid, Soros card and they don't care. Look, she's not even looking at me. And she was so worried about it. But I was just like, they don't care. Like, I wish that I would have been filming. I wish that I would have been asking those questions, because now telling those stories, people are like, oh, there's no way. No, I'm telling you, like at 2:00, they were screaming and yelling at a building while we were inside having the time of our lives. At 5:30, we walked past them on our way to the mall and they're like, oh, hey, there they are. Like, they don't care.
Wow.
Right?
You got to figure out how to get into one of those meetings where they teach you how to do that, and they pay you.
Yeah.
That would be just priceless. Could you imagine having a hidden camera where they're actually teaching? Because obviously, they're going to want to get something for their money, right? If I'm paying you, you're going to have to really sell this crap.
Yeah. Well, and they did. When we were in Philadelphia, the first day that we were there, they sold themselves as scary. They followed our bus down across town. They had signs. They were screaming. They were pushing against the police officers. Like, there were some of them that we were like, oh, this is a legit threat. We might need to be concerned. Come day 2, day 3, we're like, hi. Like, these people, their heart's not in it the same way ours was, because we were there for an event, for what we stood for what we believed in. If somebody was out there, reading dirty stories to kids or, trying to sell sex changes to children, we all would have broke through that barricade and we all would have been 100% like, I'm not standing for this. But reverse the thing. They're not at that same level of commitment. They're not, this is not the hill they want to die on. They just made fancy signs and were out there with a radio.
God, what are they going to do when Trump makes Antifa a terrorist organization? Which means now they could be shot on the spot.
Well, what are they going to do when we start actually holding treason accountable for treason? Because when you write...
I don't think that's ever happening.
When you write death to America... That's treason. When you are at a White House tour with a shirt that says 8647, that's treason, Mm-hmm. But until we start holding people accountable for their actions and making people pay consequences that are in law for their actions, people are going to continue to act out. So I don't know.
Leslie, we're on the same page there. I've been saying it for years. Okay, if there's no consequences, why would anybody stop?
Right.
And so, when you go into any political office, you have to take an oath of office, and that oath is to defend the laws of the Constitution and the Constitution itself, right?
Right.
And the laws of the land. And now what they're saying is we're not defending the Constitution and we're not defending the law. Though immediately, that's treason. As far as I'm concerned, they should immediately be snatched by their hair, drug across the street, beaten half to death, thrown in a freaking bus after they're cuffed, and taken to Guantanamo Bay where they could spend the rest of their life. I mean, that's how I see it, because they're not here for us. They're here for themselves. It's really self-interest, because all their whole piggy bank has been exposed with USAID.
Absolutely.
All of that is now out the window. When you say George Soros is funding it, George is brilliant. He funded nothing. he actually makes a profit off of it because it's all our tax dollars going into the system that
Right.
gets spent on this kind of stuff. So the real smart one is a guy named George Soros. We gave him $200 million or I don't know how much money, and he probably pocketed 50 and probably, spent the rest on what he was told to spend it for. That's about it.
Right.
It's sad we're in the situation, but this is where we are.
Yeah. And I mean, there's people who have figured out that this is the situation and that this is the system. And now it's made it to where we're leery of anybody with a nonprofit status, right? You start looking at it, and rather than being like, oh, that's somebody that wants to do good, you look at it and you're like, what are they really doing? What do they really want, right? And it's sad because there are so many great nonprofits that are doing things that are doing good, but there are so many more that are nefarious that it makes you question everything. And it's unfortunate. So, well, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, Leslie. And when we stop this taping, I do want to ask you a question, so don't get off.
Absolutely, I won't. Well, let me wrap up and then I will do that. So thank you for tuning in. Go to yournews.com to learn more. I will put the link in the comments and in the description. Thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate you. One last thing, we'd like to thank our main sponsors, Jefferson State Diesel and Taylor Motors. If you need a vehicle or you need work done to your diesel, those are the only places that we would recommend and the only places locally that we would trust. Thank you so much, and you guys have a wonderful day.